Thanks, Kim, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Jing Chen. It's my great honor to speak with you today, and I look forward to our communication. So during my talk, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can put in the chat box. I'm sure Kim and Molly will take care of that, and I'd be happy to answer the questions during or after my presentation. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce that today I'm going to talk about bite of human factors psychology. So I will focus on my research that helps improve safety for semi-autonomous vehicles. To begin with, I would like to give a little bit information about myself. I'm an assistant professor of human factors psychology at Old Dominion University. I got my PhD in cognitive psychology and master's in industrial engineering at Purdue University. And these are my websites. If you're interested in my research or more information about me, feel free to check this website. But moreover, I'm a first-generation college graduate. And I'm the first person in my family and extended family to get a PhD degree. And I'm the first person in my family to teach in college. And also, I'm a mother of a first grader in the Virginia Beach public school system. So I very much appreciate all the teachers who serve on the forefront at this point. Yeah, thank you very much. So that's my career path. This was where I was in the past 10 years. So I'm a psychologist by training. And this is, if you can see it, but this is the street address for the building where I spent 5 years to get my PhD degree. And this was at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. And then after I graduate, I moved to New Mexico. This is Las Cruces, New Mexico. I worked as an assistant professor at New Mexico State University there. It was, we were very close to White Sands, and we were able to really enjoy the view there. I worked there two years, and then with my family, we moved to here. And for those of you who are familiar with ODU, so probably you know this is the MGB building, MGB, which houses psychology and biology. But anyways, yeah, this is where I've been in the past 10 years. So by training, I'm a psychologist. And then when you hear by psychologist, you may immediately think about, oh, she knows what I'm thinking about, or oh, she deals with people with mental problems, or something similar like that. Actually, I got those type of comments and look a lot. And at some point when I was in college, when asked, I told people that I majored in chemistry just to avoid such conversations. But then later, as I proceed in my career, I realized that I have the responsibility to advocate my field. Psychology is really more than just clinical or counseling psychology. We have a lot more to offer. So my field specifically is called human factors psychology. So human factors is really an interdisciplinary field. So we have psychologists, engineers, computer scientists, and people from other disciplines in the field. And we're a STEM field. So now I would like to share with you a video that's made by Human Factors and Ergonomic Society, which is my home professional organization. It's housed in the US, but it's an international organization. So I would like to show the video that's made by HFES. It gives a very brief introduction of what human factors is, but I think it does a very good job of doing that. So please let me know if you can't hear it.
Human factors and ergonomics affect every system, product, and process humans interact with. we're impacting people in every facet of their lives. Shaping these interactions across industries and professions, we're conducting the latest research and developing new solutions for seamless connections between humans and all they touch. We're celebrating the diversity of our field and what makes individuals unique. Listening to the many voices with HFE and our commitment to diversity, equality, and inclusion. We're engaging with key federal agencies, legislators, and the general public, promoting the importance of HFE science, because now more than ever, we're committed to advancing the science and practice of designing for people and systems through knowledge exchange, collaboration, and advocacy. We believe in systems that work for humans by design, grounded in science. We are HFES.
Okay, so again, I really like this video. It's short, brief, and it's to the point. So basically, in this field, we design systems or products for human use. And this really requires us to know the system and know the humans, more importantly. Okay, so for my research, okay, more specifically, I look at the fundamental principles of human performance and decision making. That's my training in psychology really provide me with. I have the skills and understanding to study this. And also I apply these principles to safety critical real world problems. So these problems so far I have worked on include semi-autonomous driving systems or self-driving cars. Semi-self-driving cars and phishing or attack detection systems in the cyberspace. So what really excites me in this field is the opportunity to work with the researchers from other disciplines, and we solve real-world problems together. So my ultimate goal of doing my research is to help build a better world that we live in. So this is the logo of my lab that I built at ODU. We are the HACC Lab, Human-Automation Collaboration Lab. Okay. So today I will focus mostly on the semi-autonomous driving systems. But if you're interested in my research in cybersecurity, please feel free to reach out. I believe you'll be given my contact information, and also I'll have my email address at the end of the last slide. Okay, so autonomous driving, right? Or autonomous vehicles, they are those that, at least for some aspect of a safety critical control function, that it can occur without the direct driver input, right? So we can have semi-autonomous vehicles or autonomous vehicles, but they are, or at least have certain aspects of the control that does not need to involve the human driver. So the benefits are really obvious, right? Like before COVID, my commute is about half an hour each way every day to ODU. And in an ideal world, I'd love to have an extra hour per day to work on my research, supervise my students, write my papers and the grant proposals and so on. So it definitely, in the ideal world, right, this self-driving car can help me with that. And it can also help increase the mobility of the seniors, people with disabilities, and people who do not usually drive. Okay, so in the future, we may have a autonomous bus or taxi. I think some of those are not new concepts anymore. So not everyone will need to own a car, right? We probably don't even need to build a garage for every house. And on a larger scale, autonomous vehicles will lead to smoother traffic flow and more efficient use of the road. Of course, more importantly, it will reduce the accident rate and increase safety. So really, the benefits are very clear. Okay, that's why we are developing those, right? However, right, we've also seen, you may have seen news on this, right? We have also seen some fatal accidents that involve the current self-driving cars. Okay, so this was a crash back in 2016 in Florida. It was when the autonomous vehicle, they failed to see the tractor trailer of a semi-truck. Okay, so it was a fatal crash. And very surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I don't know which way you will put it, but a similar fatal crash happened in 2019, like after 3 years. There's a very similar fatal crash. Okay, and we also have others. These were in 2018. This was the one involved Uber. That a pedestrian was involved. That was the first accident involving a pedestrian. And then this was in California, also in 2018. So it is believed that these accidents were at least partially caused by design issues or drivers' low situation awareness or over-reliance on the autopilot in these vehicles. Okay, so that brings us the challenges of autonomous driving, right? So with the self-driving car or the autopilot, you are giving up the control, right? Like this, you're giving up the control to the car. So a common user would think that the car can drive itself. Okay, so with those high-tech sensors, we don't need to really be involved, and thus we become so-called out of the loop. So this actually is a problem because the sensors are not always reliable. As any type of machines, they are good but not good enough. Okay, so it may miss the critical signals that could have been caught by the human driver. I mean, if the human driver is paying attention. Okay, and also other challenges include we may have mixed traffic in the future. So you may have a car driving next to you that is automated or human driven, and you may not know, but they may behave differently. Or just think about if there's an automated truck driving beside you on the highway, how would you feel and how would you respond? Okay, so these are the challenges. And in my lab, we have done some research to help with these challenges. So these are some of the projects that we work on. So we have worked on various problems in the driver automation interaction in semi and full autonomous driving systems. So our goal is to keep the driver in the loop for these driving systems because we had the out of the loop problem. Okay, so we hope to contribute to this bigger problem of the safety issue through small steps. Okay, so I'll give some overview of what we have done, but I will focus on one or two of the projects depending on the time limit. So we have worked on designing effective warnings for autonomous vehicles, just to warn people about different events, different risks on the road. We have also worked on how to help the driver maintain a proper trust level in the system that they're driving, and to look at the different types of takeover methods that you can take over, right? You can grab the wheel directly, or you can be asked by your self-driving car, and then you give them the direction. And then we have also explored how people react to potential cyber attacks that occur in those autonomous vehicles. But I think I probably will only have time to cover the first two. But again, if you have any question or if you're interested in my other research, I'd be happy to share with you and talk with you offline. Okay. Well, so first, warnings, effective warnings. Okay, so driving, if everyone probably has the experience that it's a very visually demanding task. That means our visual system is really busy, right? We need to look at the road. We need to look at not only the road ahead of us, but sometimes also the side mirrors and the rear mirrors. So our visual system is really busy. So we here utilize auditory warnings to free up the driver's visual system and more effectively communicate potential risks with the driver. So like here, right? This is the potential risk here with for this driver. And when we talk about effectiveness or communicate effectively, here we refer to that the driver will have a more accurate recognition of the risk, like what is going on. And also the driver will have faster response to those risks, right? Like if you either brake or you turn the wheel, and how long does that take you? Okay, so that was the motivation of this project. And here. So we looked at different types of warnings that could be effective in this for autonomous driving systems. Again, we use auditory warnings because it has been shown to be really effective. It increased the time that the driver look at the road. It also increased driving and manual navigation performance. Okay, so that's why we choose auditory warnings. And there are different types of auditory warnings, if you may wonder. Okay, so here we look at them very often used warnings like text to speech. So for text to speech, that is, you have a program that can help you to read loud entered text in like automatically, right? So you read out aloud those entered texts. And let's go to the third type is spear counts. So spear counts are sped up version of text to speech. Basically, it take a text to speech and squeeze it in time. We try to keep the pitch constant, so it does not become annoying, but we do save the time. I will show you examples, the difference between spear counts and text to speech. But that was, before our research, there was nobody who ever thought about using spear counts for car warnings, although we did end up showing that this is very effective, a very promising type of warning that we can use. And to compare, we also include auditory icons, which is another type of auditory warnings we can use. Basically, it's used pre-existing constructs, like when you take a picture using your cell phone, you have the shutter sound. Okay, so that sound actually was originally because we use those mechanical cameras, and they show that sound. So that there's a pre-existing association between the warning and the sound. Okay, but it's not language based. So let me now show you some examples, and I will start with the most difficult ones to see whether you can see. Give me a thumb up, either a virtual thumb or real thumb, if you know what this is what this warning is talking about. Oops, sorry. I think I should be able to play this. Yeah. Okay. This one.
Current blind spot. Current blind spot.
Yeah, I saw some thumbs.
Current blind spot.
Okay, so next one. Let's see. This is okay. Yeah.
Current blind spot. Current blind spot.
Give me a thumb up if you.
Current blind spot.
Okay, I saw some thumbs up. Okay, so now this one you will do.
Current blind spot. Current blind spot.
Okay, so right, it's car in blind spot. Okay, so you can see the difference. So this one was the text to speech. It's really slow, right? It's slow. It's clear, but very slow. And we know when we have a warning, we want people to respond quickly, right? So from the second or millisecond that you start the warning, that's the time. We are counting that time, right? We want people to be able to really understand warning and then respond quickly within a very quick time. Okay, so the spear counts.
Current blind spot.
Right, it's very quick, and some of you may have difficulty understanding it at the beginning, but our experiment showed that with just some training, you will be able to recognize it very well. Let me show you auditory icon. Okay, so this is the equivalence for car in blind spot in auditory icons, just to beep, right, as a beep. Yeah, so we had this different types of warnings. We wanted to see which one is more effective to convey the different warnings, convey the information. So this is what we did very briefly. So we invited people to the lab, and we just play these warnings to them and have them to recognize which warning this is. Okay, so as soon as they recognize it, they give us a signal by pressing a key, and then they tell us which warning it was. So we were able to really measure how far does it take them to respond, and whether they actually recognize it accurately. Okay, so look at the results. Yeah, look at the results. So this is the, I have RT here. This means the response time. It means how much time does it take them to recognize each of this type of warnings. You can see for auditory icon, it took the longest time, nearly 1 second. So, and then for text to speech is about 600 milliseconds, which is about, which is 0.6 seconds. So more than half a second. And then with the spear counts, so I played 2 types of spear counts. The fastest one was a 40%, meaning we squeezed the sound to 40% of its original length. And then we have the 60% spear counts. We can see that the spear counts are much faster. You can respond it to these spear counts within within half a second. Okay, so it really saved you time compared to the other ones. And this is the accuracy, meaning how accurate they were. So the one means perfect, right? We can see they're all pretty good, except for auditory icon, it was a bit low. But for the spear counts, we can see they are still pretty high accuracy. So, so here it tells us that the spear counts, you can recognize them as good as the text to speech. Again, this requires a little bit practice, but it saved you a lot of time. Okay, so this is another measure that I will skip. But basically, so in this study, we found that the auditory icons responded to really the slowest, right? We probably don't want to use that in car warnings because we want people to respond quickly, right? And then the accuracy was, yeah, we had the spear counts to be responded to more quickly than the text to speech. But the accuracy was not sacrificed. They still had a faster accuracy. Okay, so our study showed that the use of the spear counts to facilitate a quick response while sufficiently communicating the warning may help increase safety on the road. So it's a very promising method of conveying the risks on the road. Okay, so of course, this study was conducted in a laboratory setting. It was quiet. It was just a very, very quiet environment. But we know that when we drive, we are not in vacuum, right? So we sometimes have some background noise. We have the cars. We have the radio. We have family having conversations in the car. We sometimes may just lower the window to have the wind in the car, right? So these all actually produce noise. So we actually have another study that we utilize a driving simulator. So for that driving simulator, we were able to incorporate those background noise in our study. This study, again, shows that it was spear counts were very effective in terms of the time it took people to respond. And also, in most cases, the spear counts are still very accurate. So the green ones here are spear counts, except in when you have windows down or when you have a talk conversation at the background, their performance got sacrificed a bit, but overall, it's pretty good. So this study again shows that even with the background noise we had people really actually drive in the driving simulation in the study, so it's more realistic. We still show that the spear counts are pretty good in terms of conveying or communicating the risks to the users. The next is more, it's a more recent study that we worked on to look at the trust in automated driving systems. So basically, in this study was motivated by maintaining proper trust So you may or may not have thought about this, but like when we go on a road trip, right? I have my husband drive and I sit on the passenger seat. I can take a nap when he drive because I really trust him in terms of driving and of course other things. But if let's say if it's my my undergraduate student, one of my undergraduate student driving, I probably would be very awake. Okay, so that tells you about trust. So trust here is the belief that the system will perform the task as intended. So the level of trust determines the effectiveness of the system, right? So we don't want to have too little trust, then the human will not use the system at all. We also don't want them to have over-trust. Over-trust means that you trust it too much over its true capability, okay? Because when we have too much trust, we will give up control. And then if the system goes wrong, we have, that will be a problem, right? So and no system is 100% reliable. So that's why we need to have a proper level of trust. And we also in this project, we want to look at, the automation can make different errors. How does those error types affect trust impairment? Meaning it impair your trust in the system and then repair after the incident. Okay. So here we again invited people to our lab and we have them drive on the driving simulator. We simulated 3 different error types they could encounter. So they had 7 drives during in the lab, and in the 4th drive, they had a critical hazard event. That event was a construction zone. So that construction zone is on the driver's lane, and it required the vehicle to change lane to avoid a crash. Okay, so in one condition, it's perfect. The car just successfully navigated around the critical hazard, so there was no error. And then in one condition, the car was like, oh, there's a problem, please take over. So it have a takeover request. So that's the second error type. And then a third is the car knows nothing. It doesn't recognize there's a construction zone. It just goes into that and causes a crash. Okay, so let me show you actually the videos we used in the experiment. I mean, these are real driving simulator. We just record the screen. So, So this was the complete failure condition. So that was just a crash because the driver was not reminded and the car was not able to handle it. So basically we were able to see that this is the perfect condition. This is their trust across the 7 drives. It gets improved and then maintained at a certain level, but this is where the accidents were. So we can see both in the takeover request and the complete failure condition, the trust got impaired really badly and it never came back. Okay. And also, if you look at their performance, meaning how well they can dodge that accident, people in the takeover request were able to, this is the proportion that they avoid the crash. Most of them, over 90% of them were able to avoid the crash. And it took shorter time than the complete failure. So it just shows you how these different error types could affect their performance, the system safety, and also their trust. So overall, in this study, we found that the trust really developed over time. And the failures, the errors could really impair the trust, and it was a very slow repair after that. So we need to, like the next step we are going to do is to really find active strategies that can help rebuild the trust. Okay, so those, I think I'm using up my time, but those are some of the research that we've conducted. Hopefully that gives you a flavor of what a psychologist can do, can contribute to the safety of autonomous vehicles. And I do have some outreach activities. I may, if there are questions about that, I may show you the outreach activities that we have done in the lab to involve people.
Oh, no, just go for it.
Sorry?
Oh, I was gonna say, just go for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, then. So for the outreach, these are some activities that my lab has conducted in the past. So hopefully that will give you an idea of how you and your students may be involved. So I personally, I'm really passionate about broadening participation in STEM from an early age. So I believe that this interdisciplinary thinking should be an integral part of education for K-12 at the K-12 level. Of course, that's what I do to my own kiddo, and also that's what I try to do to other people's kiddo whenever I can. So I have actively activated that since I started my own lab. So here, let me show you some of the events we did in the past. So this was when I was in New Mexico. Was back in 2017. We had a STEAM night. It's a STEM plus art. So STEAM, STEM plus art night for K-12 students and their parents. So we showcased our driving. So we moved our driving simulator to that was a elementary school. And so we had the kids to, we talk about psychology. We talked about how we can contribute to the future driving world, and we also had them experience autonomous driving and manual driving. So we were very popular. Like we had a long line that night. And this is me. You can see my grad student. This is my grad student Scott Mishler, and this was my kiddo back then when he was little. And yeah, so this was after I moved to ODU. We had a safe autonomous driving outreach activity for the pre-K and K students at the ODU Children's Learning and Research Center in 2019. So these activities we start with an introduction to autonomous vehicles, and then each of these kids, they have the chance to manually drive through a route. Of course, we made the route really engaging, with including some cartoons and emergency vehicles. Kids love that. And then we have them watch the car driving itself. And then, of course, we make them think, what do we need to make these cars drive themselves, right? So this was then with the kids. And then for high school students, so this was part of the EVMS Youth Engagement Program. And they had a tour to ODU. So I organized that tour. And so those are high school students from under-resourced families, and we showed them, introduced human factors to them, psychology also in general. See, this is me, if you can see me in my questions talking about, this is in aviation, human factors in aviation. And then we invited them to the lab. So of course they experienced the driving, different types of driving. And more importantly, we have them think about the advantages of autonomous vehicles and how advanced technologies were needed for autonomous vehicles. And then, of course, they are the ones to make it happen in the future, right? So our activities in general were very popular among the students, and parents and teachers, they all appreciate the educational component of these activities. I mean, these are something I would be happy, post-COVID, I'd be happy to provide these tours. And if you would like me to talk to your students yeah, I would be happy to do that. And for high school students particularly, I'm also applying for funding to be able to host high school students, maybe a couple every summer, to actually be involved in this research in my lab. Okay, so if you are interested in that, please also feel free to reach out. And as promised, this is my contact information. And our research is sponsored by the National Science Foundation. and this is my lab in one of the semesters. Thank you for your attention. Sorry for using more time than allocated.
Oh, don't worry about it. No, it's one of those things where I'd, in some ways, rather have presenters be able to finish the presentation and not like, just skip a bunch of slides at the end. So we do have a couple questions. Let me try. So the first one is, will a human monitor of the autopilot always be necessary, such as when airplane captains and pilots place an airplane on autopilot?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I would say people have different opinions. My thought is, in the near future, yes, we do need a human driver or monitor in there, and it's very important because they're like, not only the safety issues I mentioned, but also the cybersecurity issues, like you may have a hacker just hack your car. So in such situations, I do think we need the human intervention. I mean, unless in the very far future world, maybe.
No, thank you. Another question is, should an additional driver's license endorsement, such as like motorcycle or like commercial, be required for autonomous or semi-autonomous vehicles?
Well, I personally do think we need additional or proper training for the driver to operate on the autonomous vehicles. And not only that, I would think like for the dealers, actually they should also, like the car seller, when the car sales, they should also be trained additionally. So that was a study that was published, I think either 2017 or 18. So a human factors researcher herself, she was going to buy a Tesla. So she was the one actually in the video that at the very beginning. But she was going to buy a car, buy a Tesla, and the salesperson told her, our system is 100% reliable. You can always count on it. Of course, she knows that's not true because that's part of her research. She was like, really? So she questioned the salesperson many times, and then the salesperson, and then it's like, no, let me talk to your manager. So then the manager, of course, knows that and admits, oh, you can't really 100% rely on our system. Yeah.
And then, okay, so another question, it might be a series of questions because I personally am obsessed with the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety. Right, because they have the best videos about like driver safety. And I guess I didn't know like how much, I guess one question would be, how much do you sort of interact with sort of like Institute of Highway Safety, or the, there's another National Institute of like driver safety. Mm-hmm. So how much you interface with some of their research? Because I know that especially for the Institute of Highway Safety, they do some similar types of research, but it's very specific per like vehicle.
Yeah, so I'll be following the research by them and other researchers in the field. And I would hope one day I could, collaborate with them, but definitely, yes. So there are a lot of research going on in this field. It's a very hot topic. And, that's why we really want to advocate this field for the younger people. This is something really important, and it's very impactful as well.
Okay, and then I only know about this because of the Institute of Highway Safety, but I guess I didn't know if you had any thoughts on sort of some of the issues around the like car infotainment systems.
Yes. So the infotainment system, it provides information and entertainment, right? So actually, the warning systems that we studied, it's supposed to be from the infotainment system. And so we utilized auditory warnings, but that could be visual component to that. But my personal take on is that it should not be that effective. It should not be relied on like the visual and even touch screens, because when you drive, you should, at this point, you should really still keep your eyes on the road. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, one more follow-up personal interest of mine. I don't know, is there anyone doing research into sort of how distracting having a touch screen versus a tactile?
There has definitely been research on that. So definitely with only a touch screen itself is very distracting, and like I've seen researchers who have very strong opinions against touch screens. Like even with, I mean, the tactile feedbacks, they helps. Okay, so like when you touch, you have a little bump feel there. It helps, but it's very distracting. So I mean, I have that in my own car, and of course, I don't operate that when I drive, and I think it's disabled for safety reason. It's disabled when the car is driving, so I have to use like the knobs on the side to operate on that. Yeah, that's a very great point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if we had a lot more time, I have a bunch of questions about cybersecurity too, but we should probably get to Brian. But thank you so much. If people were here, we definitely clap for you. And thank you for sharing your contact information. I will absolutely be sending that out to all of the participants today, as well as all of our teachers who have requested the recording of the presentation, so they can also get in touch with you with any questions.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you all for your attention.